Welcome to PXP channel. One of the viewers had requested to make a video on Spring Boot with SQLite. So I am making this video to demonstrate how to connect to SQLite with Spring Boot and perform CRUD operation. Please note that the videos that I am making are purely for training purposes and the applications have least error handling. In actual production applications, the errors are handled in more sophisticated way. If you have not done so earlier, then please hit the subscribe button. Spring Boot doesn't provide a straightforward way to integrate SQLite database compared to other databases such as MySQL, MongoDB, etc. Spring Boot supports a few well-known in-memory databases out of the box, but SQLite requires a bit more. In this tutorial, we will go through steps to use an SQLite database in a JPA-enabled Spring Boot application. Let's have a look what it takes. To demonstrate this, we will start with creation of a Spring Boot application. As usual, we will create our project using the most popular option, Spring Initializer. Let's name the group as com.pxp, artifact as spring-sqlite.demo, name as Spring Boot and SQLite, description as CRUD example with Spring Boot and SQLite. Leave the packaging as jar. We will use Java 11. We will add dependencies such as web, Spring Data, JPA, and dev tools. Let's generate the project. Then let's import the project into IntelliJ. The project is generated. We have imported it. So we will start with the POM. We need to add the SQLite JDBC dependency for this purpose of this tutorial. We will use dependency from org.zerial. Let's re-import everything. This dependency gives us what we need to use JDBC to communicate with SQLite, but this is not enough to use ORM such as Hibernate in our case. Hibernate doesn't ship with dialect for SQLite. We need to create one ourselves. So let's do that. In the step number 2, we will have to create a new class and we will name it as SQLite dialect. Before that, let's create the student controller and let's annotate it with REST controller. I mean, this is just we will create a very simple method of return type string and the name of the method will be info. Let's return a simple string saying the application is up. And we will map it to /info and the HTTP method will be get. Let's now go ahead and create the dialect. Let's create the package dialect package and within that we will create our dialect. And in this class we will extend it to org.hibernate.dialect class, and we will do that to register the data types provided by SQLite. In the interest of time, I will copy and paste the content of this class, and then we will use this class as our dialect. And in this class, we will have to create our own methods for identity column support, disabling constraint handling, etc. This class covers all that is needed to for Hibernate to perform its function. And then we will go to our application.properties. Yeah, these are the data types that are needed. We are importing all the dependencies, dependent classes. Yeah, I will provide the GitHub link so you can directly clone this project and follow along. Let's go to application.properties file and paste uh, the properties. These are the properties we will have to paste. Okay, so now that the dialect is defined, we will create our entity class as usual within entity package. Let's name the entity as student. For simplicity, we will create a Pojo and uh, we will only add three properties. One is the first one will be private integer ID. This will be our primary key, name and email. Let me annotate it with @ID, private string name, private string email. I will create no arg constructor, then getters and setters, and a toString method. Okay, this is done. Let's go ahead and create our repository class. My bad, this will be a repository interface, so we will create that within a repository package. And let's name it as student repository. This will extend, we will annotate it with @repository, and then this will extend JPA repository. To it, we will pass our student class and data type of the primary key, which is integer. Let's import student. Then we will define three methods. First one is a public boolean exists by ID, sorry, exists by email, and to that we will pass string email. I will explain the usage of these methods in the later part of this tutorial, but now let us just define these methods. Okay, the next one is public a list student find by email. This method could return multiple students. That's why we have defined the return type as list of students. The last one is public integer, and then we will find the maximum of the primary key, max ID, and we will write a query for it using @query annotation. We will say that select max ID from student table. We will see the usage of it a little later, but for now, let's write the query. Okay, that's it. Let's go ahead and create a student service within package, maybe service, and create a class as student service. We will annotate this class with @service. And again, in the interest of time, I will not type the complete code here. Rather, I will copy and paste the code and then walk you through. And let me import all the dependencies. So the first thing is we are auto wiring the student repository, and then the first method is create a student, which takes in a student as argument. If the student with the same email ID does not exist in the database, then only we will add the record to the database. Otherwise, we will return the response saying student already exists. Uh, the auto generation of ID is ending up in deadlock, so I am manually incrementing the ID and then saving the record. And after successful completion, we are returning a success message. The next one is read students. It's a very simple one. We are only returning all the students by saying student repository dot find all. Yeah, here we are just finding all the students from the database. The next one is update student. This method takes in a student object as argument, and in this method, before update, we will fetch all the records that exist in the database with the email of the student record that was passed in. Though email ID is unique in this case, but just to make sure that we update all the records, we are doing so. Once we have all the records, we will loop through it and read each record by ID. ID is the primary key of the table. Then we will update all the attributes and then save the record. On successful completion, we will return the success response. And in case no records exist in the database with that email ID, we will return the response with message that record doesn't exist. Similarly, for delete student method, we will read all the records before removing them. Once we have all the records associated with that email, we will traverse through the list and delete each record. The last class we have. Yeah, so I will provide the code in GitHub repository um, link, so you can get the code from there. So the last one is student controller. Let's add all the endpoints for our CRUD operation. First one is for create student. First of all, we will auto wire the student service. And to create student method, it takes student object. So and that object will be passed in the request body of the HTTP request. So that is why we are receiving it from the request. That is why we have annotated it with request body. And as I said, we are auto wiring the student service. Okay, so we'll write the statement return student service dot create a student, and to it we will pass the student object. We will map it with the URL create student, and this is going to be a post method. Next method is finding all the students, so which returns a list of students. Let's name the method as read students, and it doesn't take any arguments. So we will say that student dot read students, and we will map it with URL read all students, sorry, read students, and then this is going to be a get method. And I forgot the return statement, so let me add it. The next method will be update public string update student, and to it takes a student object, and we will receive it from the request, so that is why we are annotating it with request body. We will say return student service dot update student, and we will pass the student object to it. Let's map it as map this with update student URL, and the method will be put, and the last method will be delete student public string delete student. This method also takes in a student object, and we will as usual receive the student object in the request body. So we will annotate it with @request body, and we will return student service dot delete student. To it we will pass the student object. Let me annotate it with request body and then map it with the endpoint delete student. The method will be delete. Alright, this controller class is complete. We will go ahead and run the application now. So I have changed something here. You can see I'm checking if we are getting null from the database. In that case, I'm returning 0. Otherwise, I'm returning the actual value. Similarly, in the uh, path of the method, SQL dialect is SQLite.demo. So those are the two things I have changed. Let me start the application. The application is started. Let's go to Postman and see, we have already added one student. So let me go ahead and add another. Let's say maybe John Snow, and then john.snow@gmail.com. And the student record created successfully. Let's try to read it. Yeah, we are getting two students now. Let me try to update the same record. And let me update the body. Let's change the name to maybe from Jon Snow to Arya Stark. And hit the send. Yeah, it says not found. Maybe the URL is wrong. Yeah, I just updated. Let me hit send again. Student record updated. Let's send another get request. As you can see, the name is already updated. The last thing is to delete the record. Let's do that. And let me update the endpoint. It is delete student. In the body, I will provide the name and email. We are trying to delete Arya Stark. Again, it says not found. So I made a mistake once again. Let me correct it and hit on send. Student record deleted successfully. Let's confirm that. Yes, it is deleted. You may notice that it is, if you try to delete the last record, it may not delete. Maybe it is issue with the SQLite. So that's it for now. Thank you for watching, and if you have any comment suggestions, then please let me know in the comment section. Thank you.